I won't let my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis symptoms define me.
Emerge as you. In 2 clinical studies, Tremfya guselkumab, taken by injection, provided 90% clearer skin at 16 weeks in 7 out of 10 adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis. In a study, nearly 7 out of 10 patients with 90% clearer skin at 16 weeks were still clearer at 5 years. At 1 year and thereafter, patients and healthcare providers knew that Tremfya was being used. This may have increased results. Results may vary.
Serious allergic reactions may occur. Tremfya may increase your risk of infections and lower your ability to fight them. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms of infection, including fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough. Tell your doctor if you had a vaccine or plan to.
Emerge as you. Learn more about Tremfya, including important safety information at tremfya.com or call 1-877-578-3527. See our ad in Food and Wine magazine. For patients prescribed Tremfya, cost support may be available.
Let's say your small business has a problem, like maybe one of your doggy daycare customers had an accident. You might say something like,
"Doggone it!
Hi, Chihuahua!"
Holy schnauzers!
But if you need someone who can actually help, just say,
"Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there."
And get help filing a claim from your local State Farm agent. For your small business insurance needs, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
A warm up from the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Cuss Heaps with myself, Greg Heaps Peterson, now part of the Beeson Family Podcast. We've got an absolutely excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in a few minutes by Tristan Freeman. He does such tremendous work over at Bustin' Brackets. Additionally, I know he's doing some great work over at Sleepers Media, Field of 68, and so much more. We're going to be chatting with him about what we've all got in the ACC this year. We all know about the top teams at Duke and North Carolina, but I'm going to be chatting with them about what we've all seen in terms of the coaching hires that were made in the offseason, how that's going to be able to elevate the conference. We're going to discuss more of those middle-of-the-road teams as well. What can we expect out of Syracuse? What can we expect out of SMU? And I know he's talked quite a bit about Virginia Tech on this podcast as well. We're going to avoid them, and we're going to look a little bit more at some of the other, shall we say, mid-tier teams in this conference. And we're additionally going to be talking about how recruiting has been changing in college basketball as well. We are noticing that these mid-major teams are picking up more of these guys that are right around about the 150 to 200-ish range. So we're going to be chatting about that and so much more. Tristan, just such a wealth of knowledge over at Bustin' Brackets, so it's going to be a lot of fun there. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you, for this podcast, you have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, name does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline, and the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. While I did not get in any Twitter/X questions, everything is powered by EdgeBoost. EdgeBoost is making sure that bettors are able to have access to their funds whenever and wherever. EdgeBoost is doing an incredible job of being able to give you a dollar for dollar match on your first deposit of up to $25 as well when you type in that promo code of Greg, G-R-E-G. Additionally, with EdgeBoost, they make sure that 100% of gambling transactions do get approved. So they are doing a great service for bettors, and hopefully we'll be able to do you a great service in terms of getting you set for the upcoming season with all these great chats, as we're going to have more conference previews going along here in the next few weeks as well. So I have no fear there, but a lot of two-part conversations as the madness of the transfer portal, all the player movement, that's pretty much done. Now it's all about getting down to business and trying to be able to figure out what we're going to get out of these teams. And Tristan, he's hard at work getting set for the upcoming season. You're able to follow him on the old Twitter/X at HoopsNut351. And Tristan, it is always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you for having me.
Always good to have you aboard. And Tristan, it is so interesting what we're getting this offseason because we saw so much player movement. It's really come to a halt over the last few weeks, but how do you take a look at this year's ACC? Because we've talked about it in the past, how imbalanced the conference has been, and it does feel like there's going to be more mid-tier teams than there have been in past years, but I do have a fear once again, which I'm sure that you do too, that like some Boston College and company are not going to be able to carry their weight in this conference.
Yeah, there's going to be a bottom tier, as in any league. Even the SEC had, the bottom tier, South Carolina, LSU. And as you mentioned, Boston College, you can add on paper Stanford and Cal could be teams that, bring up the rear. But the middle is intriguing. I think you look at teams, like Clemson and Wake Forest, who did lose talent but have good head coaches. Notre Dame and Syracuse are teams with a lot of good young talent that could take the leap as well. And then, as long as the top's strong with Duke, Louisville, North Carolina, and we'll see who else can join them, then I think this can be a league that can easily get 5 or 6 plus bids to the tournament.
Yep, and with the ACC, I think that was so big that they just had the offseason hires that they did in terms of their coaches as well, because I felt like it was a really good hire by Virginia that they were able to get in Ryan Odom. Obviously, people are applying the fact that Will Wade got the head coaching job over at NC State, and very rightfully so, and I think that that adds a little bit of shot in the arm to the conference, because I feel like one of the biggest reasons why we have seen the fall off that we have with the ACC over the last few years is losing so many of those legendary coaches.
Yeah, several years ago, the SEC either had coaches retired or fired, and they ended up getting, I guess you could say, a golden era of coaches for their teams, which allowed them to become the league that they are today. And yeah, the ACC is still, rebuilding with a lot of their newer hires, and some like John Shires has worked out perfectly. And I think we can already see the Pat Kelsey era going into a great start as well, but we'll see what happens with Hubert Davis and so many others. I think Ryan Odom has been successful everywhere he's been. Micah Shrewsbury is slowly but surely building something in Notre Dame, and we'll see what Jai Lucas does at Miami. But, this was a change that the ACC was going to have anyway with so many older coaches that, you're just going to have to get the process going and hope that this next batch of guys can work out in order for the conference to remain strong.
Yep, absolutely. And I do think that that is going to be such a big key moving forward, having these coaching hires pan out for these teams. As joining me on the show, we do have one of our good friends, Tristan Freeman, who does such great work over at Bustin' Brackets. He's joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops. I know that the ACC is very interesting. One team I know that you've talked about quite a bit is Virginia Tech, and I do think that they're intriguing for this upcoming year. The one team that I think is so interesting is SMU, though, because with SMU, we saw them have their moments of brilliance last year, and last year we had them just sort of fall down the toilet bowl towards the back half of the season, but thought that they made a good hire in Andy Enfield, and I do feel like this is a team that is pretty talented with bringing back Boopy Miller, BJ Edwards and company. And how do you take a look at this team for this upcoming season? Because unlike a lot of teams, they actually have quite a bit of returning talent.
Yeah, they're one of the few teams who returns, 3 starters, a double-digit scorer. I think, the big man Summit, you told Jalou, could be a breakout star for them. And their backcourt brings back, BJ Edwards and Boopy Miller. And then Jaron Pierre was a 20-point-per-game scorer at Jacksonville State. And, they got a top 10 recruiting class, including, 4-star prospects, Nigel Falls and Jermaine O'Neal Jr. And then they added a reclass wing as well from just this past weekend. So they got young talent, they got shooters, they got size. They're a team that talent-wise can be top 25 good. We just have to see, any NFL team be good enough defensively. That was their big issue last year. But if they can defend just a little bit, then they'll definitely be a team to watch.
Yep, they certainly are going to be. I think that they're one of the most fascinating teams in the conference, one that I think could be able to be one of those bunches that earns a bid to the NCAA tournament. And I do feel like there's just a lot of intriguing teams in general, because I think that this is a little bit of a do or die year as well for Micah Shrewsbury. He's got his son back in Brandon, who's been pretty solid for them. I actually really like the fact that they bring in Carson Tout from Northern Arizona as well, one of the top rebounders in all of college basketball last season. And for Notre Dame, one of the biggest issues I've had with them is the fact that they don't really grab a lot of offensive rebounds, and bringing back a guy like a Marcus Burton as well, who's a stat sheet sufferer, I feel like this is a more balanced Notre Dame team than we've seen in past years.
Yeah, Marcus Burton, one of the best players in the ACC. We've seen in the offseason, players on losing teams tend to want to transfer. Burton could have easily been one of the top transfers this offseason, but he opts to return. He's part of one of the top backcourts in the country with him and Brayton Shrewsbury, and they added 5-star prospect Jalen Harrelson as well. There's not really any excuses why they can't at least be a 500 team in the league. It's going to come down to the front court play. Northern Arizona transfer Carson Tout is their big front court acquisition, and they still have some young forwards as well. If their front court is just good, then they're going to be a dark horse team to watch in the league. But as you mentioned, there's pressure because you're not going to have those guys forever. And if you can't win with this talent, then when are you?
Yep, exactly. And for Notre Dame, I know that Mike Shrewsbury was getting a little bit upset at the media last year as well. You could tell that he was starting to feel a little bit of pressure. So we'll see if they're going to be able to break through this year. I feel like this is going to be a massive year number 3 for him. And then just looking all around the ACC, I think that this is a little bit of a do or die year for Syracuse and that coaching regime as well, because they've got J.J. Starlin back, but other than that, you don't return a ton. Donnie Freeman is a guy that I think is pretty rock solid, but they're really going to be banking on Nathan George coming in, being able to give this team a little bit of a spark offensively. And for Starling, it just has always felt like he's been so inconsistent with his three-point shooting, and I think that that's going to be a big key for the Syracuse team, one where from season 1 to season 2, it felt like there just wasn't a lot of similarity.
Yeah, even dating back to his first year at Notre Dame, I think J.J. Starlin is someone who probably isn't best to be a lead guard, but is still a good player nonetheless. And the fact that he could slide exclusively off the ball with Nathan George, who's already a proven guy, considering he led the ACC in passing at Georgia Tech, I think that situation will work out. And Donnie Freeman's going to be a sophomore breakout player to watch. He could have been a potential draft pick this year had he left, but he's going to be back, and I think the front court's going to be much better as well. And then we'll see what happens with Kyan Anthony, son of Carmelo, who is a 5-star caliber prospect. He's an elite shot maker. And, along with Oregon State sharpshooter Nate Kings, I think, they're a team with an underrated backcourt. Assuming that, someone like Freeman can become an all-league caliber player, then they're a team that has postseason aspiration as well.
Yep, absolutely. And I do think that this is a bunch that could be able to bust through a little bit more. We need to see how that backcourt is going to be looking, but there is certainly a lot of intrigue there, as we've got Tristan Freeman, who does such great work over at Bustin' Brackets, joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops. And I know that Tristan has been doing so much great work to get set for the upcoming college basketball season, diving in on a bunch of various topics. So we're going to air it out a little bit more, break away from the ACC, take a look at a few things that Tristan is keeping an eye on for the upcoming season. What are some trends that he's noticing? And we're going to be opening it up, talking about how some of these mid-major teams have actually been able to benefit and bring in some top 200, top 250 freshmen, and why you want to take a look at those freshmen a little bit more this season. That's up next, right here on Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the Beats Family Podcast.
At RX Bar, they believe in simple nutrition without the BS. That's why they said no to artificial ingredients and yes to deliver intentional, transparent nutrition. Try their original 12-gram protein bar, the nut butter and oat bar, or minis. RX Bar, the proud sponsor of No BS. Use code RXBAR on rxbar.com for 25% off. Subject to full terms and conditions and to change. Valid until September 30, 2025, and may not be combined with other offers. See rxbar.com for full details and limitations.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We're back being joined by Tristan Freeman, who does such great work over at Bustin' Brackets, taking a look at this great game of college basketball that we all know and love. You want to give him a follow on the old Twitter/X at Hoopsnut351. He's doing great work along with his work over at Bustin' Brackets, over at Sleepers Media, Field of 68, and so much more. And Tristan, I know that you're very in tune with everything that we've been seeing this college basketball offseason. I know that you're taking a look at a wide variety of things, doing a lot of roundtables, doing a lot of articles, and I want to open it up to you a little bit. What is something that you're taking a look at for this upcoming season that's maybe going a little bit under the radar and might be a little bit of a change from what we've had the past few years?
Yeah, I mean, we're starting to see some teams head into preseason action, seeing, which players are going to show up. And it was interesting. Colorado was a team that went 2-2 in their 4-game preseason run in Australia. They were led in some games by their freshmen. And that's going to be key for a team like Colorado, who doesn't have much aspirations coming to next year, considering they finished last place last year. But if Isaiah Johnson and Josiah Sanders, their 4-star freshmen can come in and have an impact, then suddenly they could be a team that you can't just automatically picture to be in the basement. Although at the same time, if it's the freshmen that are the top players, then maybe that means because the veterans aren't holding up their end of the bargain. So it's a double-edged sword there, but I'm definitely interested in seeing who are some of these standout freshmen, because with all the COVID year seniors gone, we're going to see a lot more freshmen crack rotations and get on the court than we have the last few years.
And I think that that's such a great point as well, because something that has been so nice for me over the last few off seasons has been having to put a little bit less emphasis, a little bit less research into the freshmen, because you have so many teams that are bringing in transfers, and obviously that is still the case. You still have a lot of teams that they're looking to be old, but how do you take a look at this year's freshman class? Because obviously the Boozer brothers are big ticket items over there at Duke. AJ DeBansa, he goes on over to BYU, and he should be an impact guy, and you got a Peterson in there, Darren Peterson, going on over to Kansas as well. A lot of people know those names, but are there guys that are sort of like in that like top 50, top 75 range that people are sleeping on that we should be paying attention to? Because I think that this could be a big element this year, unlike what it has been in the past few years.
Yeah, and we've seen guys who ultimately end up being, breakout players on certain spots. A guy like, Mikael Brown for Louisville, he's good, and Louisville could have Final Four expectations. He's a 5-star guy. In the middle range, UConn has a couple of guys, such as Eric Riebe, the German international guy, and Braylon Mullins, the 4-star sharpshooter. If those guys are impact players, combined with what they're already returning in Solo Ball and Alex Caravan and Terrace Reed, now all of a sudden UConn could be one of the best teams in the country. So just having that depth of impact players who are ready to come in and contribute, that can easily raise a team's ceiling and floor as well, as we mentioned with a team like Colorado.
Yep, absolutely. And I know that with just this day and age in college basketball, it feels like more of the mid-majors have been able to land some top 100 guys as well. Nick Lewis, who's going on over to VCU, I know that a lot of places have him as a top 75 guy. I think that that's a really good gift for him, but he should be able to see the court right away, and I think that he's going to be a little bit of an impact guy. St. Mary's, I know, had like a pair of top 150 guys come in. I think that that's going to be rock solid. Heck, I think that Pacific had like a really good recruit as well. Jalen Pitt comes to mind for me. Like, how have we been seeing things just be a little bit more rearranged with regards to the way that recruiting is going? Because it does feel like more of these mid-major teams are able to sneak up and not necessarily get like those top 40, top 50 guys, but it feels like there's more, shall we say, diversity of teams when it comes to the top 200, top 250 than we've seen in past years with the just outbursts of transfers.
Well, the biggest thing for freshmen outside the 5-star range have, when it comes to teams in the revenue sharing era, is that they're cheap. Would you rather get a 4-star guy ranked in the top 100, but who isn't a guaranteed star, or transfer from, the MAC or the Ohio Valley, who is going to cost you a lot more money, but they're also unproven? And most of them are usually 1-year rentals. So I think, financially speaking, it's going to be good to go after some of these guys. And if you're a mid-major team, especially those who don't have football, you can offer a lot more for these guys for your number 1 or 2 option than for most of the power conference teams, which they would probably won't even be in a rotation the first or second kind of year and could get passed over by another transfer. So definitely for teams like VCU and other A-10 teams, you can see them start to get a few more than they normally would, but a lot of these guys still look to go to the power conferences because ultimately if you succeed there, that's where the money and the recognition's at.
Yep, no question about it. And I do think that these mid-major teams have been changing up their approach a little bit over the last few years. And I do think that they've been having a little bit more success, like we mentioned, with those top 200, top 250 guys. You're not necessarily going to be bringing in the top 75 guys, but even a guy like a Joshua Lewis going on over to the Louisiana Raging Cajuns, that's a consensus top 100 guy as well. And we just didn't see as much of that just even 2 to 3 years ago. So I feel like that's a little bit of a change in what we're seeing in college basketball. And Tristan, I always love to ask you towards the end of our chats about a team or two that maybe you're identifying that you're feeling a little bit more bullish on, but I want to switch it up a little bit here. Is there a team or two that you're taking a look at right now that as the offseason has went along, maybe you felt relatively good about them and you're starting to sour on them a little bit more, and maybe you're thinking that it might be a little bit more of a tough season for them than a lot of people are thinking?
This might be, too warm a take, but I'm not necessarily feeling, Coach Rick Pitino's comments on, there isn't, any point guard play in college basketball today, considering that the best return player is the point guard in Braden Smith. It just feels like, the point guard play for them could be a little bit more shaky. He talked about Ian Jackson was going to be a guy. We didn't hear much about him past week. Dylan Mitchell was a guy who leads them in assist, and it's good that he's developing his game as a passing forward, but I don't know if that necessarily means that the team's going to be better. They ultimately have too much talent to fail, so they're still going to be really good. But I do think them not necessarily having a true point guard, or at least one that hasn't come out right now and established himself as the lead guy, could be something that comes back to haunt them come postseason.
And I'm so glad that you mentioned that, as I've got a guest that joins me from the great state of New York, and Justin Perry. He does such great work over at Shock Value Bets, and he was talking just about that a few days ago. Maybe it's not like St. John's is going to be losing these games to insert your favorite mid-major here, but when they're favored by like 25 to 30 points, they might be struggling in those games early on during the season as they tried to find a point guard. They tried to be able to find those rotations. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that, and I do think that it's worth noting coming into this upcoming season, as the St. John's three-point shooting should be quite a bit better, but again, you don't have that main ball handler unlike a season ago, but a man that is able to run the point, a man that does a great job of being able to run the fast break and so much more. That'd be you, Tristan. You do such a tremendous job on so many different fronts, whether that be busting brackets, Field of 68, Sleepers Media, list goes on and on. So love to get people at home know it's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yes, sir. You can follow me at HoopsNut351 on Twitter/X, and follow at Bustin' Brackets, and we're fully in preseason time, and we're about, 90, 80 days away from the start of the year, so can't wait for that and for everything else we'll be able to cover.
Oh, no question about it. And Tristan, he's doing such a good job of getting set for what is going to be an amazing upcoming college basketball season. He's got his finger on the pulse of the sport all 12 months of the year, and every single time he joins me, lends such good insight. So a big thanks to Tristan for joining me right here on Cups Soups, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And if you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Coast Soups, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Citra, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways we will fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, name does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline, and the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review, and I know that Tristan is hard at work every single day taking a look at college basketball, as am I. Expect quite a bit more conference previews in the next few weeks as we are getting set. We are getting these rosters all fortified, so looking forward to that. And I'm with you guys every single day on this podcast, regular season and off season, so I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.
Don't just ride the index, seek to outperform it with FELC, the Fidelity Enhanced Large Cap Core ETF. Unlike passive ETFs, FELC is run by a team of experts to adapt to market conditions and pursue upside potential wherever it's hiding. And while you get the potential outperformance of an actively managed fund, you can still buy and sell it on your terms, just like any other ETF. Discover FELC, the Fidelity Enhanced Large Cap Core ETF, part of Fidelity's suite of active ETFs. Learn more at fidelity.com/FELC. Before investing in any exchange-traded fund, you should consider its investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses. Contact Fidelity for a prospectus and offering circular, or, if available, a summary prospectus containing this information. Read it carefully. While active ETFs offer the potential to outperform an index, these products may more significantly trail an index as compared with passive ETFs. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Commercial Insurance. Business owners meet Progressive Insurance. They make it easy to get discounts on commercial auto insurance and find coverages to grow with your business. Quote in as little as 7 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliated and third-party insurers. Discounts and coverage selections not available in all states or situations.
At RX Bar, they believe in simple nutrition without the BS. That's why they said no to artificial ingredients and yes to deliver intentional, transparent nutrition. Try their original 12-gram protein bar, the nut butter and oat bar, or minis. RX Bar, the proud sponsor of No BS. Use code RXBAR on rxbar.com for 25% off. Subject to full terms and conditions and to change. Valid until September 30, 2025, and may not be combined with other offers. See rxbar.com for full details and limitations.